Wild and native cats. Before the cat, the little weasel, which is the smallest member in the genus Mustela in Europe, it was eating voles, mice, birds' eggs, cereal grains, and berries and snails. These little weasels used to hang out under the stone foundations of farm buildings and catch mice and voles there. There was a tradition to feed the little weasels so that they would stay around the yard catching mice. Cat is descendant to the forest cat or wild cat Felis sylvestris. Based on DNA studies, researchers have estimated that the wild cat was domesticated in the Middle East. The domestication of wild cats on a large scale began when the introduction of agriculture was carried out. Cats were found to be useful in controlling mouse populations that were destroying grain stores. Eventually, in the company of humans, the most tame wild cats became to breed into forms that are comfortable as domestic animals. There are hundreds of cat breeds in the world, with a wide selection of cats of different looks, sizes and temperaments. The most common cat in Finland was the native cat. Native cats were born in Finland more than purebred cats. The number of farms is rapidly decreasing, and it can be assumed that the number of cats that roam and reproduce freely will decrease. On the other hand, if the climate warms up, cats can manage without humans and they will go wild again. The Finnish native cat is an unbred domesticated cat. It is believed that cats have come up to the north through two ways. One is the short-haired cat that is assumed to be brought up with the Romans to Northern Europe. And the other cat is the long-haired cat, which is assumed to have been brought up from Caucasus region with the Vikings. Here you can see the family tree of cats. It consists of the jungle cat, the Blackfoot cat, the sand cat, the European wild cat, the African wild cat, and the domestic cat. IUCN is the International Union for Conservation of Nature. And they will take all our wild animals, conservation and protection, and follow their amounts of them. And if you go to Wikipedia pages, you will see that under each of these cats there is also an estimation or some research on if the animal is critically endangered or if it's fine, so there is least concern about it. For example, here on the picture you can see the jungle cat and you can see that LC, least concern, so it should be fine, the Indian jungle cat on the picture. Some animals there are no data about, or it's not evaluated, or it could be regionally extinct, or some are really dead, so and some are extinct in the wild but still being kept, for example, in zoological gardens. Let's have a look on then where we will find these wild ancestors to our cats. And the first up is the African wild cat. Here you can see a map where it's marked with some red colors where you find it. It's believed that it was domesticated by the ancient Egyptians and generally considered to be the ancestors of the domestic cat. The African wild cat is light brown with dark stripes, and the fur is shorter than that of the European forest cat. The African wildcat is also much smaller. It eats nearly only mice, rats, and other small mammals. If the situation permits, it can also eat birds, reptiles, amphibians, and insects. The cat approaches the prey slowly and attacks after reaching a distance of about a meter. The African wildcat is active mainly at night and at dusk. The European wildcat. The European wildcat, also called forest cats, require large, peaceful forests with open spaces. It prefers deciduous forests. Forests must be natural and contain old trees. Only such forests that have tree holes or fox or badger dens that the cat can use is where they raise its youngs, and there it can prey undisturbed. The presence of this cat in nature conservation areas, it is a sure sign that the nature of the forest is suitable for it. And as you can see here, then the northernmost areas looks to be like in Scotland. There's some areas also in Germany where you find it, and some other Central European countries, and of course then in the southern parts of Europe. If you look at the color on the photo now, there is just like one type. There are of course many of them. Then this is also how actually our farm cats, the short-haired farm cats, used to look like. So they used to be pretty common, this type of looking of cat. Perhaps the ones we have domesticated up in Finland are a little bit even more short-haired than this wild cat. And now about the Caucasian wildcat. So it's like the other type of cat that also came up here to the north. It's a subspecies to the European forest cat, and in Azerbaijan it's also called the white-skinned forest cat. Caucasian cats mainly spread in the Caucasian at an altitude of 2,500 to 3,000 meters. It lives alone in dense forests. It feeds mainly on rodents and small birds, and sometimes they can hunt pheasants, rabbits, and even young claved mammals that are larger than they are. Lighter grey fur compared to the European forest cat. And this cat is endangered, and it's listed in the Russian Red Book. So the Red Books are listing species that there are in countries, and endangered such as well. Then there is the sand cat. And the sand cat is a cat that lives in the desert of North Africa and Southwest Asia. You can see it in, for example, Tallinn Zoo in Estonia. The fur of the sand cat is a light sand color, but the fur on the back is slightly darker than on the rest of the body. The tail of the species is black at the tip, and the cat is vigorous. And you can see, among other things, that you find it in some areas in Morocco, and then some other African countries also, including also some parts of Egypt, and then on the Saudi Arabian Peninsula and other areas more in this Southeast Asia. The Pallas cat is a small wildcat living in the barren steppes of Asia, mainly in China and Mongolia. The Pallas cat has a flat face and small ears that can set far apart. Its legs and tail are short. The pupils of the eyes are round, unlike other cats. It eats rabbits, less often mice or other rodents. It's also hunted for its fur. Protected areas have been established for it, and its trade in Turkey is restricted. The species can only be hunted in Mongolia. Due to its endangered classification, the Pallas cat must be monitored. The black-footed cat. Its fur is sand-colored and has dark spots like a leopard. As its name suggests, its legs are black. Even if at these photos they are not that black, but of course they are black spotted. It is surrounded by dry areas such as Kalahari Desert, and the black-footed cat is an endangered species. And you can see here in the southern part of the African continent where you can find it in a not that large area. Though Africa is a big country, so everything is relative, but yes. The jungle cat. It's a cat with long legs and pointed ears. A fully grown individual is from 4 to 16 kilos, so it can be pretty heavy. The short tail has dark rings. It can clearly be seen here on the middle picture. It lives in southern parts of Asia and northeastern Africa. The color of the fur is sandy or brownish gray, and its pattern is unclear. It's a viable strain. So you can see that this cat you can find, for example, in most of India and many other South Eastern Asian countries as well. So the native cats in different countries are different, which is due to the adaptation of the cat population to the local climate and other environmental conditions. Native cats includes populations that have formed on its own in some areas with no bred cats mixed in. As native cats has not been breeded, there is a large amount of different colors of them. There are both short-haired and long-haired native cats, depending on from what kind of population it was first developed. The background of the Finnish native cat is often on a farm, as a mouse catcher. Their reproduction has rarely been controlled, other than by killing unwanted kittens. Alex Kolesnikov have been having a look and making some genetic research on cats, and he says that the long-haired cats most likely have been bred to have these very long hairs, because if you look at it from a wild or semi-wild cat's perspective, then it's not to an advantage for the cat to have this very long hair coat. So it is, however, of course, good in cold regions that the cat has long hair and shorter hair under, exactly in the same way as sheep, the native sheep in these very cold regions. They have a very thick, fine wool closer to the skin, and then a longer hair that is covering these, which give them a good isolation then of the body with this double coating. So Kolesnikov also says that the basis for native breed is determined by the majority of cat researchers as the product of a spontaneous selection in the isolated population with common phenotype. So only in cat populations that are big enough and that has been relatively isolated for long periods of times, this genotype would then stabilize. And those populations can then be converted into native breed without any difficulty. You should always evaluate very carefully your sources. For example, if you read the Finnish Wikipedia page about the native cat, it is written, if the puppy hasn't been dewormed, hasn't been vaccinated and fed the right kind of food, it might start its life very wrong. We have to conclude and think about it a little bit. In the countryside, cats have always done well without deworming and vaccination, but cats also get a variety of food that they catch themselves. So it depends again on the circumstances a lot. Of course, also if your farm is very isolated or located in a very big village, and of course if you have a cat that is not located on a farm, then and that cannot roam freely, then it's necessary for it to be dewormed and vaccinated and fed the right kind of food. The right kind of food for a cat is when the cat can catch its own food, because that is the nature of a wild cat. It's catching different kinds of prey itself. All kittens need their mother and siblings until they are 12 weeks old. So naturally, the kittens would stay much more longer with their mothers if humans are not taking away them. But at least 12 weeks it needs to be with their mothers and siblings. Currently, the oldest domesticated cat is believed to be 39 years old. An overweight native cat can weigh more than 10 kilos. So these long-coated cats that we find up here in the northern Europe, then the Norwegian forest cat has been registered as a breed. We will have also a little bit more information about the Siberian cat later on. And then there is both in Finland and Estonia a native long-haired cat as well. Here's an example of the native long-haired cat from Finland. It resembles really much the Norwegian forest cat. Pay notice too that under the pods it is hairy, so it's totally adapted to walk on snow and not freezing. And here another cat that actually changes from black, at least partly, into grey, whereas it gets older. Also a sign in many of the native animals that black is changing into some other colors. It may change in the sun to brown, or it can be changing also from black into grey. These three cats are siblings, all born at a farm in southeastern Finland. As you can see, then two of them are short-haired and one is long-haired. I have been reading that the long hair should be recessive characteristics. Sweden is the only one that have made a new organization quite recently for farm cats in Sweden. So they have now an organization for such farm cats, which is of course really necessary as the amount of farms are decreasing very quickly nowadays. and the Norwegian forest cat, which in 75 then was recognized as a breed and has an own organization in Norway. We took already a look at some of these long-haired native cats in Finland, and now let's have a look on some also in Estonia. So here are two, and as you can see, they resemble very much of the Norwegian forest cat. And like the Finnish long-haired cats, also these have hairy hairs, thick hairs under the pod. One very old cat, also from Estonia. One from northeastern Estonia. One more from northeastern Estonia. This is from also eastern Estonia. Close to the former location, eastern Estonia. This cat was actually living, I don't know if it had some place to go to the winter time, but it was mostly, we saw it outdoors all the time. Another one, and two more. Pay notice to the hairs coming out from the ears. Makes it look a little bit like an lynx. Here, a very old cat. And some cats from Ruhnu Island. And here you can see this short-coated type of cats. And again, some cats at Ruhnu Island. And this is a mother to the right, long-haired, and a son to the left, short-haired. So it seems like if a long-haired cat is mating with a short-haired cat, then the short hair will dominate. So in the long run, there will be less and less of these long-haired cats. The Siberian cat, the Russian long-haired cat, it used also to be called. It's often mentioned then to be a Russian landrace, but researchers shows that its origin is in Persia and Caucasian mountains. These cat novices for the Siberian cat were actually taken already more than 100 years ago in the area around St. Petersburg, a so-called Niva region. And this region was the home for the Ingarians, a Finno-Ugric tribe. It was also exhibited first time on exhibitions in St. Petersburg area. It is said to be less allergic giving due to that it produces less FeLG1 protein. This cat is also very much used in Russian fairy tales. You can see this cat often as a figure in those. And here from Kotomka village in Udmurtia, an Udmurtian cat. It's a Finno-Ugric area east of Moscow. Let's still have a little bit a look of the cat's role in our history. So you have perhaps heard that there actually are art pieces of cats, and also mummified remains of cats have been found 4,000 years ago already. Cats were kept as domestic animals and were also a symbol of fertility. In ancient Egypt, killing a cat was punishable by death. Well, quite the opposite than in Finland, because cats are associated with flax cultivation in Finnish spells. old spells. And there it gave very good luck to kill a cat in these spells. So two very morbid spells here, that the housewife had to kill the cat. When there will be then there will be a good flax yield and good flax will grow. And also another even worse was to kill the cat by putting it under the sledge foot, and then sit on the sledge, and then you killed it at the same time. That would also give you very good flax luck. So very strange and opposite direction of old habits. We have here to mention also that the cat is the newest of our native animals that have arrived up to the north. It's believed that the cat arrived here around 1,000 years ago, so with the Vikings. So it's not that old, the animal, in our northern regions. In Sweden, or also Norway, Denmark and Iceland, the Scandinavian gods, there is a fertility god called Freya, a woman, and she was traveling in a carriage pulled by cats. So here perhaps we have something going in the same line as the history of the Egypts, where it was a symbol of fertility. The cat has also been used, among other things, as a metaphor for witchcraft, a witch sitting on a broomstick with a cat, namely a black cat, that was considered to be the witch's minion. Cat's meat has previously been used as bait in fishing in Finland, especially it was popular in bait for crabs. So crabs were fished in lakes and rivers. And cat fur has been used to make fur hats and winter gloves as well. It's very rare to find old paintings with cats, and I actually only have managed to find this old woman and a cat by Axel Gallen-Kallela, who was a famous painter in Finland from 1885. And on this picture you can see that it is this short-haired cat. The genetic history of cats have during these recent years been a lot of research on that, and by Googling you find easily information about cat genetics and of different cat species as well. The information about cats on old art and photos is perhaps not that easy to find, but that would also be a really nice subject to make some more research into.